Do you think that ufology is a pseudoscience like astrology and homeopathy? You are categorically against any assumptions about technologically advanced extraterrestrial life and ridicule anyone who brings it up. After this video, you will reconsider your views. We will present documentary materials that were once made public by former United States Army Sergeant Major Bob Dean, which caused quite a sensation. In the photos, you will see objects that are hard to mistake for artifacts of natural origin, and you will also learn the secret of Saturn, which has been carefully hidden from the public for many years. In recent months, there has been too much speculation about an alien invasion. First and foremost, the wave of guesses and hypotheses was caused by the asteroid 3I Atlas, an interstellar visitor that visited Saturn and the solar system, which we mentioned in one of our recent episodes. Why did this particular object get ufologists and astronomers all over the world so worked up? First, this is only the third recorded artifact that has come to us from the ancient depths of space. Second, scientists were attracted by the incredible speed of this celestial body, 245,000 kilometers per hour or 60 kilometers per second. It's hard to explain even with acceleration processes. Not a single asteroid traveling at such lightning speed has ever been recorded in the solar system. And this is not speculation, but a clearly documented fact. Could this object be considered the infamous unidentified flying object? Absolutely, yes. But the opposite is also true. 3I Atlas could very well be an ordinary asteroid that just happened to visit us. But in this video, we'll talk about something else. Are there any photos or documents that suggest the truth is really being hidden from us? And that extraterrestrial presence is not the fantasy of delusional citizens or half-crazed conspiracy theorists, but an everyday reality. Hubble. So Bob Dean is a former military man who also served at the Supreme Allied Command Europe, Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe. He lived in the state of Arizona and passed away in 2018 at the age of 89. Judging by the information this man left behind, he lived quite a full life and knew significantly more than the vast majority of people. On several occasions, in fits of candor, Bob Dean, who according to him had been studying UFOs since the 1960s, revealed classified information and at the same time opened the public's eyes. Let me warn you, we're not talking about idle fiction or fantasy. This man was closely connected with National Aeronautics and Space Administration and the CIA for a long time, and therefore had access to confidential information. That's why, in our opinion, such a source deserves attention. In 1963, Bob Dean first gained access to a secret NATO document called the Assessment. It contained information about observations of unidentified flying objects and even about contacts with extraterrestrial civilizations. Bob Dean referenced technologies shown in these documents that, according to the military man, greatly surpassed those on Earth. He also talked about 4 types of alien races, which were also allegedly mentioned in the program. But is there any documentation, evidence, or information that this person made public? The most sensational photos are related to Saturn, or rather, its surroundings. Here, besides Bob Dean, Norman Berggren comes into the picture. He is an American engineer and scientist who worked at the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics and later at the Ames Research Center. He claimed that in 1980 he saw several photographs for the first time, where a very strange object was captured. It was located near Saturn, and National Aeronautics and Space Administration specialists almost unanimously determined its size to be about 3,200 kilometers. What could it be? Maybe some kind of technical error. However, many years after Berggren's account, in 2009, the Cassini spacecraft also recorded this unknown structure, and specialists reached a consensus. The object is about 3,000 kilometers long and 800 kilometers wide. But why haven't we noticed such secrecy behind Saturn before? Probably because it's not just a huge planet. Its massive and significant ring system has always raised questions among astronomers as to why Saturn's rings are so impressive. Norman Berggren published a book in 1986 called The Ringmakers of Saturn, where he hypothesized that these structures are artificial. Why were they created? Could it really be just for camouflage? Of course not. Most likely the material of the rings is either fuel or nourishment for the life forms that created them. But who could they be? Obviously, these beings have absolutely nothing in common with humans. Bob Dean has repeatedly answered this particular question in his interviews. Now, we ask those who categorically deny the existence of extraterrestrial life in any form to step away from their screens, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about. What do extraterrestrial beings look like, and do they live among us? In particular, in an interview for Project Camelot, Bob Dean described 4 extraterrestrial races in great detail, referring to that same document, Evaluation. This information was also noted by the former military officer at the Exopolitics Summit, an unidentified flying object Congress. The first race is humanoid, almost indistinguishable from humans, but with more refined facial features and tall stature. According to Bob Dean, they are among us, possess advanced technologies, and have telepathic abilities. The other 2 races have almost nothing in common with them. They either closely observe the development of human civilization or actively interact with it in hidden ways. In the first case, these are highly developed non-humanoid beings belonging to the 4th race. As stated in the document, it is estimated that they are most likely clusters of energy, completely incomprehensible to us. But the second race in the document is referred to as the Greys. They are often associated with human abductions. According to Bob Dean, they look like the classic aliens in our imagination. Short in height, gray skin, and huge black eyes. By the way, in 2025, the CIA released the archives of the Stargate program, which mentioned these very beings, as well as the other 2 types of aliens. This serves as additional evidence supporting the truthfulness of Bob Dean's claims. If you start to feel nervous at the mention of reptiloids, then close your ears and eyes, because right now we're going to talk specifically about these beings. In the assessment document, they are classified as the 3rd alien race and are considered quite aggressive. In any case, many of them have hidden intentions. The most dangerous aspect is that reptiloids can shapeshift and blend in with people. A lot of time has passed since Bob Dean's well-known lecture at the University of Leeds on this topic. Since then, the number of alien races has grown to dozens, and some sources claim even hundreds. What are these beings' goals? In addition to being observers and seekers of knowledge, Bob Dean emphasized in his interview that they can be called guardians of humanity. In particular, they are interested in our genetic and cultural code, and they are also meant to prevent global catastrophes, such as nuclear war. Given the global geopolitical situation plus reptiloid intervention, it would help us to know if we should treat all statements or declassified information as global misconceptions. The fact is that in 2023, hearings were held in the United States Congress dedicated to unidentified anomalous phenomena, where local scandals broke out. In particular, pilots demanded the right to freely speak about what they saw in the sky while on duty. These people were regularly attacked for telling the truth to the public. In 2020, the Pentagon officially released videos in which United States Navy pilots recorded unidentified flying objects, demonstrating technology far superior to anything on Earth. Here are the video incidents called Go Fast.
Subtitles created by Dimatorzok.
Also, a year later, reports from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence on the same topic were published. We suggest you take a look at the gym ball incident.
To be continued.
This event took place off the east coast of the United States, near the aircraft carrier United States ship, Theodore Roosevelt. In the recording, you can hear how surprised and bewildered the pilots are. It's no wonder that these events triggered hearings in Congress. At the hearing, former officers of the United States Armed Forces and Intelligence testified under oath, sharing their experiences of encounters with unidentified flying objects. Some called this persistent secrecy a threat to national security and urged the government not to bury its head in the sand by trying to hide crucial information from the public. Here is more documentary footage taken during the Tic Tac incident. The photo captures an unidentified oval-shaped object. It's hard to call the airspace of the United States safe in light of this information being made public. In any case, despite criticism and statements from government officials refuting almost everything said by the military, holding the summit has partially removed the stigma from this previously taboo topic. Mysterious artifacts near Saturn, unidentified objects in Earth's sky. This is all we have at the moment. Or is there any other documentary evidence of extraterrestrial presence in our solar system? Of course there is, and they are connected to the Apollo 12 mission. In particular, we're talking about photos taken by Alan Bean, the second person to set foot on the surface of our satellite during this mission. We also present a number of photos taken during this and other lunar programs, in which you can see something strange, difficult to explain in terms of ordinary camera defects. And this is what Neil Armstrong, the first person to set foot on the moon, saw through the porthole. And here are a couple more strange photos that still raise many questions. What should we do with this information? Bob Dean claimed that the entities he repeatedly described live in several dimensions at the same time. What could this mean? Most likely each of us has interacted with them at some point, but unconsciously, perhaps not even identifying such contacts as an encounter with something unidentified. The existence of a large number of parallel dimensions was also mentioned by Einstein in his time, although this happened in unofficial conversations. Within relativity theory, the scientist avoided mentioning this to escape harsh criticism. In some ways, he was right, because even now such information is actively rejected by most laypeople and physicists. What conclusions can be drawn from the information obtained? Bob Dean, Norman Berggren, lunar mission astronauts, and many United States Air Force pilots all agree we are not alone in the universe. Numerous photos, declassified documents, and artifacts serve as evidence for this. In his book, Norman Berggren claims that not only is there a ship between Saturn's rings, which we mentioned earlier, but also much larger structures, about 11,000 kilometers in size. In particular, he released photos taken before National Aeronautics and Space Administration specialists edited them, which show an incredible exhaust from these conglomerates, more like an energy explosion. If all this is true, then it is unlikely that these structures have relocated anywhere. They are probably still actively functioning in the vicinity of Saturn, amazingly remaining unnoticed by us. Berggren's book also says that similar structures operate near many planets of the solar system and even close to the Sun. Why are they there? Most likely it's for accumulating energy resources, although their true goals will remain hidden from our understanding for a long time. After the publication of some photos, even those who categorically did not believe in the existence of any other forms of life, besides the ones familiar to us, will have to start doubting. It's obvious that National Aeronautics and Space Administration and the Pentagon have information they don't want to share with the public. Only insiders like Bob Dean and Norman Berggren help partially lift the veil of secrecy. That's why the truth seeps out from every crack, no matter how much Congress and the Senate try to antagonize those who reveal it. We're used to thinking, comets, chunks of ice and dust. But what if one of them isn't a chunk of ice, but an alien ship? 3I Atlas is an interstellar visitor in our system, and it's doing things that scientists haven't been able to explain yet. Is it just a rare comet? Or is a squadron of aliens passing right under our noses? Interstellar objects are an exception. They were considered rare, but that was before. It would seem that 3I Atlas is just flying by, nothing special about it, but it's literally breaking the mold. Its chemical composition is not like that of familiar comets. Its behavior is strange, and its shape is unusual. Every new detail reinforces one thought: what if this isn't nature, but technology? The details of the discovery and the inconvenient facts. It was detected early, which is already rare. Early detection gives us time to observe. The trajectory is hyperbolic. The object came from outside and isn't bound to the sun. Its speed is tens of kilometers per second, one of the highest among interstellar visitors. Its size is kilometers in diameter, but that's not the main point. The spectra showed one of the strangest combinations. A lot of carbon monoxide, 2 and very little water, 8 times less than a typical comet. Plus, there are strange traces of nickel with a shortage of iron. Nickel without iron is not something we usually see in natural objects. Remember this phrase: the chemistry points to an alien recipe. You're already starting to worry that aliens are watching you. Take a deep breath in and now exhale. This is what really catches abnormal movement. Some observations indicate small but abnormal changes in trajectory, deviations that can't be explained by gravity alone. The object behaves as if someone or something pushed it. Sounds familiar. Oumuamua behaved the same way. And then the hypothesis about a solar sail emerged. Does that mean 3I Atlas is a sail? Not necessarily, but it raises the question: what if this is a technology that uses light pressure or some other non-classical propulsion mechanism? The sensational statement from scientists is that the reflectivity and shape are strikingly intriguing. According to light curves and images, there are hints of an unusual form of distortion. The surface doesn't behave like loose ice, but rather shimmers, as if there's something inside, like a glass bottle filled with water. But on a very, very large scale, it shines and reflects differently than expected. This usually happens with metals or coatings. Add to this the assumption of an elongated or flat shape based on the change in brightness, and you get a picture where natural explanations start to fall apart again. The question is it a body or a shell? Age and traces of processing, assessment of age, billions of years, definitely older than the solar system. If it's an artifact, then it's ancient technology, millions of times older than us. Imagine, a mechanism that survived galactic storms has finally approached us. Even if it's a natural object, it still carries the chemical signature of another system. High carbon monoxide, 2 unusual organic traces, nickel. All of this looks like evidence of prolonged processing or specific formation conditions. Again, the question is, an ancient capsule or an ancient ship? Here are the arguments in favor of the scientific community's hypothesis. A hyperbolic trajectory. The object came from outside. It's not a local thing. Unusual chemistry. Carbon monoxide, 2 is higher than usual. Nickel without iron. The light reaction and shape are unusual. The reflectivity and changes in brightness resemble an uneven flat structure. Abnormal deviations in movement, possibly an indicator of atypical dynamic forces, sail, active ejection, maneuvers. Let's put these arguments together, and the picture becomes alarming. Each element by itself can still be attributed to a natural process or a measurement artifact, but together they form a dense puzzle. Maybe aliens are flying on a spaceship, but let's be honest, scientists unanimously demand evidence. The optical effects of the flash could be artifacts of the cameras and atmospheric distortions. The chemistry can be explained by formation under the exotic conditions of red dwarfs, weak heat, and carbon monoxide. 2 ices last longer, and deviations in movement could be the result of asymmetric evaporation of gas jets that we haven't seen yet. Clearly, science doesn't rule out the spaceship hypothesis, but it requires testable predictions, signals, structural discreteness, stable maneuvers. So far, there are none. It's a hypothesis, but one that's hard to get out of your head. What can be done and what should we expect? What's next? More spectra, more light time series, redirecting existing probes. The idea has been discussed, but it's technically challenging. The possibility of an encounter with Jupiter, a chance to change its trajectory or get a burst of activity that would clarify the nature of the object. If radio signals appear, they could be like this or like this. Repeating patterns in the flashes of light, that would no longer be a guess, but a warning sign. And if we see stable maneuvers that are consistent with the physics of a sail, then the conversation will move to a new level. One thing is clear, we need to act faster and more carefully. But will we make it in time? So, in front of us is either an extremely rare interstellar capsule or an ancient technology that somehow survived for billions of years and came to us. 3-Eye Atlas has already changed the way we look at the sky. It makes us ask the most uncomfortable questions. What questions, you ask? And I'll tell you. Most likely it's a natural rock with an unusual history. Kahem. Or perhaps a deactivated drifting probe from an alien civilization. Do you still closely follow the news happening on Earth? It's much more interesting in space right now. A giant tarantula, 1,000 light years in diameter, has been discovered. City lights have been found in a distant galaxy, and traces of a cosmic fire have been detected. And finally, Pandora's box has been opened. The James Webb Space Telescope continues to reveal unprecedented facts about the universe. It finds exoplanets with amazing conditions, discovers regions of star formation where they shouldn't exist, and delves into the very origins of the macrocosm. In one of our videos, we mentioned the telescope's astonishing discovery in 2 galaxies that appeared just 300 million years after the Big Bang. But just recently, James Webb observed an object whose characteristics overshadow the previous success. We're talking about the Milky Way's twin, the Geelong Galaxy, which appeared about 1 billion years after the Big Bang, making it hundreds of times older than ours. The stunning yet spiral galaxy looks completely formed, which, according to modern understanding, is truly a nonsense. Back when the universe was 14 times younger than it is now, does this galaxy still exist to this day? Most likely, we are observing the light of a long-dead object that has only now reached us, which does not diminish the discovery of James Webb. At the moment, this is the most distant twin of the Milky Way. Astronomers have found that in terms of shape, size, and even stellar mass, it is almost identical to ours. The galaxy was named for the Chinese solar dragon. In fact, Considering its diameter of about 60,000 light-years and roughly 100 billion solar masses to be accurate, the object can be called the younger sister of our galaxy. Before that, in 2023, James Webb also discovered a galaxy similar to the Milky Way, JIRS 2112, but it was born a billion years later than the one we're talking about. Right now, it is almost 12 billion light-years away from Earth. So, is James Webb intentionally searching for such objects? Both yes and no. This time, the discovery happened by chance. The telescope was simply mapping a large area of the sky using a wide-angle camera. Even so, the discovery again shook scientific foundations. Judge for yourself. The Milky Way, as we've been told for decades, formed over the course of several billion years, while the Zhulong galaxy needed only a billion years for this. How are things going with the discovery of new exoplanets? Here too, James Webb has done quite well. Back in 2022, the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite Telescope discovered a celestial body using the transit method, which was given the index Lighten half-second. 475 BA year later, James Webb confirmed the existence of this planet as a fact with the help of an infrared spectroscope and began its detailed study. The objects are located more than 40 light-years away from us, orbiting a red dwarf much smaller than the Sun. It is rocky and Earth-like, both in mass and size, but that's where the similarities end. Telescope data shows the planet has no atmosphere because its spectrum is completely featureless. In addition, Luiten half-second 475b has temperatures of up to plus 300 degrees Celsius, since it is very close to its star. The orbital period is only 2 days, which also doesn't inspire optimism, but gives the celestial body some resemblance to Venus. Nevertheless, this is a very important foothold for studying rocky-type exoplanets. It's possible that James Webb was mistaken, and there actually is an atmosphere on the celestial body. After the first studied exoplanet, the telescope discovered a second truly amazing one, VHS. 1256 BVHS is something between a brown dwarf and a planet. The object is located 72 light-years from Earth in the constellation Corvus, and there are 2 suns in the sky of this planet, and its mass is enormous, about 20 Jupiters, and its radius is also about 1.5 times that of Jupiter. The unusual object is very far from its star, about 100 astronomical units away. So a year there lasts 151 Earth years, and the temperature on the planet's surface is about 1,100 degrees. There's absolutely no chance of finding water and life there. Well, actually, there is water, but only in the form of vapor. Additionally, the clouds contain carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. Not exactly a nice place. It's worth noting that this is the first simultaneous detection of methane, 4 carbon monoxide, 2 and H2O molecules in the atmosphere of an exoplanet. James Webb also detected silicate clouds above the red dwarf, which indicates active mineral condensation. Research on this unique object continues. What else has the James Webb Telescope impressed the public and the scientific community with? It discovered a real stellar nursery, an active star-forming region from such a distance, resembling the lights of a big city. The largest nursery for future stars was detected in the nebula, the Tarantula, located in the Large Magellanic Cloud, our neighboring galaxy. This object is located 160,000 light-years from Earth, and the mentioned region was discovered there for the first time, because no device before this could penetrate the dense dust clouds that hide it. Also, James Webb forced us to look at the famous pillars of creation from a different perspective. It turned out that within their dense dust embrace there are billions of stars dying and being born. But the Tarantula Nebula, which really does look like a giant spider, is a record holder when it comes to star formation. That's probably why it's so bright that if it were at the same distance as the Orion Nebula, it would cast shadows on Earth. Want to hear about James Webb's most amazing discovery? It's a real window into the early universe, a place where you can observe extraordinarily active star formation and even traces of protoplanetary disks. This is the Pandora cluster, where instead of troubles and misfortunes coming out of the cosmic box, young stars and galaxies emerge. The Pandora cluster is, quite literally, the universe's demonstration mode, showing humanity in simple terms how the amazing structures of the macrocosm come into being. The thing is, the cluster officially named Able 2744 has an interesting feature. It affects space like a cosmic lens, the most powerful one that exists. That's why, thanks to Pandora, we can see the most distant and previously inaccessible galaxies using the cluster's amazing feature. James Webb discovered about 50,000 sources of infrared light, many of which are massive galactic clusters that formed shortly after the birth of the universe itself. Interestingly, the objects have different shapes. Some look like fluffy spheres, while others resemble peanuts or cashews. This indicates significant differences in the processes of star formation, as well as points to evolutionary aspects. Overall, scientists have a lot of work ahead of them in this area. Hubble and James Webb, are there really such fundamental differences between these telescopes, or are there any other meetings? Unlike Hubble, James Webb captures much more detailed images, records the merging of galactic clusters, and even supernova explosions. However, one discovery amazed not only ordinary people but also seasoned scientists. In June 2025, James Webb discovered real clouds of smoke, specifically carbon molecules, located 12 billion light years away from us. In the photo, they can be seen as an orange ring. The previously mentioned lensing helped to see such a distant object, a process discovered by Albert Einstein, in which a supermassive cluster of galaxies acts like a giant magnifying glass. This is the first case of detecting complex organic molecules in the newborn universe. Similar particles are found in earthly soot and smoke, and aromatic hydrocarbons are also found in coal and oil deposits on our planet. What's amazing here is the fact that almost immediately after the Big Bang, the universe was able to create such complex molecules. Previously, this was considered absolutely impossible. If you think that the eyepieces of the telescope are aimed exclusively at the heart of the universe, you're mistaken. In the meantime, James Webb is exploring relatively nearby surroundings. For example, he recently took a closer look at trans-Neptunian objects from the Kuiper Belt. And what did the telescope discover? It turned out that some comets and asteroids have methanol ice, that is alcohol, on their surfaces or inside them. Scientists call it a time capsule because under the influence of cosmic radiation, it gradually transforms. In this way, it can demonstrate how these objects have evolved over billions of years. What dessert have we prepared? James Webb has uncovered the secret of the Orion Nebula, located 1,350 light years from Earth. In this location, a protoplanetary disk belonging to the D200-3506 system was found. By the way, in the photo, you can clearly see the difference in image quality between Hubble and James Webb. It might seem like nothing unusual, but thanks to its unique equipment, the telescope discovered a crucial carbon molecule, the methyl cation. This was found in the region where James Webb used the near-infrared camera, MIRI, discovered this molecule. It is constantly exposed to extremely intense, hard, ultraviolet radiation, which is caused by the emission from massive stars, for example, from the trapezium cluster. The protoplanetary disk surrounds a red dwarf in an active star-forming region. Therefore, astrophysicists suggest that ultraviolet radiation contributed to the formation of the methyl cation, although it usually destroys complex organic molecules. Why does the discovery matter so much? The methyl cation is a key link in interstellar organic chemistry. The element interacts very poorly with hydrogen, but it often reacts with other molecules. which contributes to the formation of complex carbon compounds that later become the basis for the emergence of life. The second important point that scientists have discovered is that ultraviolet not only kills and destroys, but can also stimulate chemical reactions. What conclusion can be drawn after such shocking news? We don't know about you, but we're sure this is far from the end. James Webb will definitely bring us more surprises, and maybe even become that very time bomb that will eventually undermine the foundations of the world. Attention, interactive segment. Write the first half of your last name in the comments and let strangers finish it. Talk to you soon, my friends. Well, Earthlings, the video's not over yet. We still have some very interesting and spectacular episodes ahead. But for me to keep delighting you with all the characters of the universe, I need your feedback. You can express it quite simply. All you need to do is give an electronic like under this video, since we simply don't have any other kinds of likes, and continue the phrase "I know." That way, you'll let me know we're moving in the right direction. Stay tuned.